All ages of ghosts floated into the coffee shop as the night fell, as if it were the shore of a great beach, and ancient bits of driftwood were finally washing up after centuries at sea. A night manager, a young man with curly hair and a bullet hole in his forehead, stood behind the counter taking orders as ghosts arrived. He dragged a huge silver vat from out of the bag, one I'd never seen before, and poured cups of steaming coffees out of it. The night manager's name was Roy. He'd stumbled through the door just as I'd been leaving. We stared at each other awkwardly for a second before he said, "Sorry, I guess I'm early." "Early?" I whispered. "You're meant to be gone. I'm the night manager. You see, I run the shop uh, at night, and I think it is night now." "Oh," I said, bewildered into accepting what was happening. Or maybe I just wanted to believe. And who comes into the shop at night? People like me, ghosts. "Oh," I repeated. "Well, you shouldn't serve spirits here. I could lose my license." He smiled at that. "Why are you here so late?" I shrugged. There was a lot that needed doing, a lot to clean up for tomorrow." "Sure, I get that," he said. Then he asked if I wanted to stay a while. That maybe I could give him a few pointers. He hadn't served drinks at all except in the Civil War, and that had only been for a short period of time. So I sat on a table in the corner, breathing, while he stood behind the counter, not doing so. I wondered if my poor husband would be waiting up and wondering what had happened to me. But how could I go home now? At about midnight, they began arriving, always one at a time. And when I asked why they came one at a time, Roy said, "Everyone died alone." I suppose he was right. Soon we were as packed as a graveyard, Roy pouring coffee and handing them over to the adults, while giving the children orange juice instead. He never took any money. If I was really here to give him tips, I think charging the customers might have been the first. The tables filled and the ghosts began chattering to each other, talking and listening to others on the tables. "They didn't get to chat to people often," said Roy. "We only open once a week, so they like to make the most of it." All ages of deceased people sat in the coffee shop now, from little children to long bearded men. They seemed happy, drinking and laughing. All served, Roy sat down next to me. "There are so many of them," I said, "and so many are young, younger than me even." "I was 17," he said. "Death comes for us all at any time." A profound sadness sunk into my heart and I began to cry. "It's okay," said Roy. "It's so cold here," I said. "We don't radiate much heat, but we make up for it with our warmth with the winter." He paused, then said, "Listen, I know what you're going through. I mean, it was different for me, sure, but I understand that you're scared." I was too. I hadn't spoken to anyone about it, not even my husband. I only had the diagnosis 2 days ago, but I felt like if I locked up it in my heart, like a secret in a safe, then it'd be fine. Then it'd just go away. "I don't want to die," I said. "You might not if you confront it. There are treatments." It didn't strike me strange that Roy knew about my diagnosis, about modern treatments, I said. I don't want to be a lone piece of driftwood in a cold ocean. We all die alone, he said. But we don't have to live alone. I know why you stayed late, and I think in your heart you do too. I just don't want to. He deserves to know it's not the burden for him you think it is. You know why? Why? Because he loves you. He placed his hand on my mine, and although I couldn't feel it directly, a chill ran down me. The other ghosts were gone now, hadn't walked out the door but just vanished, like a light switch had flicked off. You're going to now, aren't you? I said. Yes, but know that you won't be alone unless you choose to be. Tonight, you chose to be, but you didn't want to be. That's why we came. I wasn't sure I feel understood. Be strong, he said, then tapped his chest. Open that safe. Tell him what's inside it. Tell yourself too. He leaned across and kissed my cheek, and then he was gone. I sat alone in the dark cold of the coffee shop on a little table in the corner. I must have sat there an hour before there was a thump against the door, before my husband shouted my name. He turned the handle and stepped through, not like driftwood, but like a boat, a rescue ship. His face didn't fall when he saw me, didn't say a word. Instead, he walked to me and took my hands. I stood and hugged him. Whatever it is, he said, we'll get through it together, okay? I nodded into his shoulder. Okay. A story by Rupert Frogington.